Former friend who called me a bad influence for being child-free just demanded today that I take in his family and 3 kids into my home. Hey everyone, welcome back to Childfree for Life. Don't forget to subscribe to be a for-lifer. First, this isn't a post where I'm asking if I did the right thing or not. I know I did the right thing. This is a pure rant about this emotional day. Because if anyone is going to understand, it's all you in the child-free community. The gist, a former friend, Dave, not real name, who I haven't had any contact with for almost 3 years, just got in touch with me again. He claims he has a home emergency and needs to find a place for him, his wife, 3 kids to stay while the home situation gets fixed. This is the same guy who, when I was going through something traumatic, told me he can't be my friend because I'd be a bad influence to his kids being child-free. A bit of background. The reason for the friendship ending, I was in a high-stress situation and very sad. My father dying was just one of the terrible things that happened in a span of 3 months. I was looking for consolation, and instead Dave told me that me being a child-free woman was a bad influence on their family. He had a wife and 2 kids then. In short, they didn't want to spend time around me as I wasn't worth it when they had more valuable friends. This was someone I had known since graduate school and had spent a lot of time doing fun stuff with, like rock climbing. Dave and I were among a group of mutual buddies that regularly rented out lake houses or winter lodges for summer and winter sports activities. We're talking 10 plus years. Then to just ditch me because he thought I wasn't useful hurt a lot, especially when I was dealing with some really sad stuff. Even more so because I was there for him when he found out his mom had cancer and then was there for him at his mom's funeral. Like I said, I haven't spoken or texted him in almost 3 years. I chalked it all up to people getting really weird when they have kids, that they fall into a traditional conservative mindset that anyone who isn't wanting or working toward a Leave It to Beaver or 2.5 kid situation is somehow suspect. Then today I see a text pop up on my phone from Dave. I never erased or blocked his number from my phone, so his name was still saved. And there it was. He asked me to let him and his 3 kids stay with me at my house because their water heater broke and it's kind of an emergency situation. He knows I now live in the same city as him and it would be a really big favor and he'd owe me. Okay, so lots of emotions with that. Apparently since he told me I'm a bad influence, him and his wife had a 3rd kid. COVID baby, I guess? My biggest question was, why ask me of all people? I asked Dave why he's asking me to do this for him. His response was basically that he's all out of options and that no one has the room for him and the 3 kids, especially with his 5-month-old. I asked him why he can't arrange a hotel for them. He said that would be really expensive and they're in a lot of medical debt already from their newest kid having to be in the NICU when he was born. I said that sounds tough, but again, why me? He said he knows I helped out someone last year with emergency housing and saw I had extra room for guests. Since I was so generous back then, I could be generous with him now. I knew exactly what he was talking about, but I really wanted to know how. That situation was delicate and I thought a private family matter. He said it was posted on Facebook by the couple I helped. Quick segue, about this time last year, one of my good college friends, Kate, with lupus, got COVID-19. She was being so careful too. It sucked because this was before the vaccine rolled out first for vulnerable people. She is my age, mid-30s, and very healthy aside from lupus. She's a marathon runner actually. Kate's lupus ended up making COVID even worse and she ended up in the ICU. On top of that, she was pregnant and her husband had to make the decision to save her life over the fetus. Basically, it was either giving life-saving medicine and care to Kate at the expense of her fetus or she dies. Thankfully, he's a good guy and let the doctors end the pregnancy to save her life. Kate's mother was a disgusting idiot and said that her daughter should have died with the baby. She said that Kate's life is not worth much anymore and even tried to bring in a priest to try to give her last rites. Kate was in a coma at the time. This caused a huge dramatic fallout, as you would imagine. Kate's brother and his wife needed a place to stay away from their crap mother immediately. I had an extra room and I'm an easy distance from the hospital. They stayed with me for 2 days until they locked down a hotel room in one of those long-term residence hotels. No one was sure Kate was going to make it out alive, so they understandably wanted to be nearby. They lived out of state and were staying with their crappy mother while their sister was in the hospital. Thankfully, Kate made it out alive and has since disowned her mother. She actually remembers while in the coma people talking about the priest trying to break in. I let the brother and his wife into my home because these people were good people, have always been supportive, and still are some of the most gracious people I know. Apparently, unbeknownst to me, because I'm not on Facebook, is that either Kate's brother or his wife posted something about how much of a decent person I was to help them out in a dire moment of need, and I lied during a very dark period for them. They told me as much to my face. I just didn't know that they shared the situation on social media. So back to today, Dave saw that stuff last year, kept it in his head, and thought I would let his family and his kids into my home with open arms. Frankly, I told him to shove it. I was ticked he was trying to guilt me into letting him and his family into my house for an unspecified amount of time. That he knows I'm child-free. Heck, he even said me being child-free is a bad influence on his family. Yet, all of a sudden, when it's convenient for him, I'm magically not a bad influence and he should be able to waltz back into my life without even a single apology for the crappy things he said 3 years ago? I told him being child-free means I don't want kids in my house for an extended period of time. If I did, I wouldn't be child-free. That I wasn't going to disrupt my life and my 2 cats to be a bed and breakfast for his 3 kids. He said I was selfish and to think of his kids. That there's no hot water in his house. I told him tough dookie that he can whip out a credit card or get one of his relatives to cover a hotel stay. He gave me more excuses, brought up their medical debt again, and said it'll only be for a few days. I said that multiple days for a broken hot water heater sounds extremely suspect. Stuff like that can be fixed relatively quickly. I know residency laws in our state, and if someone stays 7 days in someone else's home, then they can claim tenant rights. I was not about to risk this turning into a thing where I can't get rid of them. He told me off and then said he will blast me all over social media and to all my friends that I won't help a family of 3 in an emergency, that I want little kids to suffer. I told him to pound sand and eat man meat. He hasn't been a friend for years. He doesn't even know my address. All he knows is that I live seemingly close in the same city and that I live alone. He can blast me on social media all he wants. I'm not on Facebook, so I don't give a single crap what the gaggle of Karens think of me. Told him social media isn't real life. If he does actually share this with my actual friends, that they laugh right in his face. Told him I have all his texts for proof of the way he spoke to me and how he's a big crap bag. Told him he used to be a decent guy, that we had a lot of nice times together, that I'm still sorry about his mom, and I'm sorry that he went down this path in life, since it sounds like he must really be miserable. But he's a bad influence in my life, so I just can't have him around. I'm sure he'll understand since he said the same about me. That was the gist of the last thing I said. He went off until I blocked him. I'm really sad about it. He really used to be a decent guy back 10 years ago, and his mom was a lovely woman. I'm not bracing myself against flying monkeys who may come out of the woodwork and try to guilt me into taking in his family. Can't wait to tell them to take in his family themselves. I already talked about the situation with my 2 best friends, and they were both shocked that Dave was so brazen and had no shame. They thought it was suspect that he was so pushy about getting into my home, and for days. One friend said that her water heater broke recently and had a plumber come out the same day. It only took a day for it to be fixed. Being against the hotel idea was a red flag to them. They're curious what the whole story is. I agree that it felt like it's missing something. I do feel righteousness about all this. I know I did the right thing. I hate that a previous kindness was used as a weapon against me. Years ago, I thought maybe he had a point, that I was somehow not good enough because I was pretty depressed. Like, people don't want sad people around. Now with clarity, I see that he had a profoundly bad character, but it did reopen old memories, sad memories. Anyway, thanks for reading. If you made it all the way through this, had to get this off my chest and vent. We need more stories, OP. Well, Kate and I met in college because I almost got stabbed by a roommate who had a mental break and got quickly shuttled into a different dorm suite with her and 2 other girls. Kate's mother apparently has been a problem for a while. Kate's husband apparently couldn't catch a break because he didn't want her to be a stay-at-home mom. The mother-in-law would tell him to man up constantly, like he wasn't being what a true man was supposed to be. Mother-in-law was looking for a son-in-law who would oppress her daughter. It was funny because the mother ran roughshod over the father. It really let everyone come to terms with how much of a heinous crapbag mother-in-law was. No one could rug sweep it anymore. Some fallout is that Kate's father is divorcing the mother and trying to rebuild a relationship with Kate. Kate has moved closer to her brother and sister-in-law and farther away from her parents. No one talks to the mother anymore. Their medical bills are a lot. You can imagine how much money it was for a couple months in the hospital. They used to be in a financially good place to have a kid, but now they very much aren't. So they're not considering having a kid for the foreseeable future. They're much too involved with celebrating that she made it out alive to worry about babies. Cheating death and getting away from her oppressive mother has made her want to do things her own way. She was kind of a meek girl in college. Like I said, we became best friends junior year when I almost got stabbed by a roommate. I was also deemed a bad influence by Kate's mother because I was applying to grad schools. Her mother would constantly come to the dorms to make sure everything was tidy and our kitchen was clean. We weren't good girls if we didn't keep the place spotless. It was really weird. I think she was trying to figure out if boys were coming by and if Kate had a boyfriend. She was not allowed. After her mom freaked out at finding alcohol, we all were 21. We collectively told her to get out and never come back. Made an official complaint with the housing to get her revoked from the building. At graduation, only Kate's father was happy. Her mother had a sour face and said she was disappointed her time in college didn't lead to any marriage prospects. This was a 180 from years of her telling Kate she's not to have a boyfriend and sully herself before marriage. Unbeknownst to them, Kate had been dating her now husband during our senior year, but hid his existence. She was like, my mother is bipolar and crazy and I just don't care. So she brought him to the graduation dinner we all were having with all the parents. Her mother wasn't even happy with that. No one knew what would make Kate's mother happy. She was and still is a miserable Schweinehund. Honestly, it looked like Kate's mother always hated her daughter. Why? Who knows what goes on in someone's crazy brain?